Welcome to another episode of A Come Together. All right, Kim Houston, welcome. So happy to have you here. Thanks so much for the time.
I love the invitation. Thank you.
You want to tell me just a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do, and we'll go from there?
Who is Kim Houston? Sure. So I'm a mom, first of all, and I work as a casting director and a studio owner. So I have an acting studio for all kinds of different people that are actors that currently audition, people that are brand new that have never auditioned. And it's also a taping service for actors that need to get themselves on tape since
Mm.
things have changed since COVID, uh, really changed.
Can you tell me about that? What
Well,
what changed?
since the pandemic, self taping has become the norm for actors and casting directors. It offers a lot more flexibility,
Hmm.
definitely, for them. But it also comes with its challenges. uh, there's so many pros and cons. So an actor now has the flexibility to record pretty much at their own schedule, and they can redo takes as many times as they want. Uh,
Yeah.
you can really audition from anywhere. There's no need to be near casting hubs like it used to be. You obviously save that way on travel and parking and time off of work, and
Hmm.
you have more control over your performance. Even in terms of lighting and editing, because normally if you walk in a studio, it's you're kind of that's the situation.
Yeah.
So definitely pros for actors. I think some cons are that the technical aspect, you
Hmm.
know, especially for parents. Um, lighting and sound and editing is usually not their forte. So if you have a child that's really, to get on tape for an audition and that's not your skill, uh, I believe there are meltdowns that probably a lot of arguments between
Sure.
husbands and wives on getting, the deadline done. So there's also this lack of real time feedback and direction,
Hmm.
what I loved about casting. So they don't get that, and they can feel disconnected for sure, and unsure even if their tape is being viewed.
Yeah.
So an investment for sure in equipment and setup, and it doesn't have to be a lot, but it's something that actors never used to have to do before. So for casting directors, our pros. There's an efficiency now to reviewing the process, and that can be on a flexible schedule. I could be anywhere really,
Yeah.
which about that.
Do you take advantage of that? Do you travel a lot now?
I live in North Carolina, basically.
Oh, nice. Where?
I live in Asheville since 2009. I live just
Um,
outside, and
has your home or neighborhood been affected by the floods?
terribly so.
I'm
Yes, and
so sorry.
there more than ever now. With there's a very very strong community there, and the
Yeah.
rebuilding has been amazing. To be a part of that community. So sometimes I can't wait to get back for a lot of the things that are going on there. Even after the storm, when we had no power, no water, no gas, uh, I was there during that, and it was terribly frustrating, obviously. And I've lived through hurricanes in Florida. Um, that is where you want to experience something like that, not
Because the
here.
people there are so good.
Just they're thoughtful
Hmm.
and they're about people, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
stuff, which
Yeah.
is more of here. You see
Yeah.
more. Everybody's got to have a nice car and nice clothes, and where there, people know that people had a lot of money there because they're not all show, and I've always been drawn to that. So definitely my property is devastated with the amount of tree loss and damage that the trees did even to the
Yeah.
ground. With the amount of power that these 200-year-old, you know gigantic pine trees fell, they shattered our water lines.
No
So we
way.
everything, and it's so expensive. I don't know if you know, to remove debris.
Hmm.
trees from a property. First of all, cutting them up would be a fortune, but we had so many volunteers
Yeah.
that were to just, help. Everybody was just, running around with chainsaws. Like, how can I help? What can I do? And so we took advantage of people cutting it, but then to have to remove it, huge vehicles and train. And so it's been a fortune.
Yeah.
But, that
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's so terrible. I mean, so my dad has a log cabin about an hour from there,
what part?
and right closer to Tennessee, right by Burnsville.
Yeah.
Johnson City, I think, is actually the closest place next to it. Yeah, and so we have a lot of very positive associations with that place. And my dad, when we fly in, he flies to Asheville, and then we'll either rent a car or pick one up. But we love Asheville for the we've been visiting for the last 10, 12 years, and it's got a special place in our hearts. And we heard about it was just it was so sad. And my dad called me. He goes, I'm driving through, and he goes, this just breaks my heart to see what's going on.
Still, what the news shows. And then, of course, stops showing at a certain point, and people are still living there in tents. And there's been so many people that haven't even been found,
Yeah,
hundreds.
yeah.
So I go back and forth. I'm really lucky to have that Asheville airport because they're expanding it. I don't know if you've seen it lately.
No, no, really?
Going to Asheville since in my early 20s, my mom and her husband had an apple orchard just outside in Hendersonville.
Sure.
And in my 20s, you'd leave Miami International and you're flying into this little postage stamp airport. I hated it. I just thought, oh my God, this place is just Hickville and nothing. And I can't wait to get back to Miami. I just always had that feeling of how long are we going to be here? Because it was always holidays. Well, the airport only now, and this is, 2024 is when we started the rebuild, is finally, being renovated after,
Hmm.
and it's going to probably look, better than Miami for sure. But,
They probably operate better too.
oh, but the point is, I absolutely love Asheville now. I moved in just about when I turned 40, had small children. I just had the opportunity with the film business dying in South Florida completely because of,
Hmm.
again, hurricanes are really what, kind of is always around my life.
Yeah,
So there were so many storms that were coming through, and film production just came to a halt because people just didn't understand coming from California and the earthquakes. Like, what do you mean we shut down and we evacuate? And they had no insurance really for that. And
yeah, and it's massively expensive, right? I mean, it's a fortune to push off a project even for a day, right?
so they just were like, Florida, there's no guarantee there. There's especially certain times of the year, and our hurricane season is so long
Yeah.
that people, it was really a mass exodus between 2005, 2006. Most of the good crew left knowing that, Atlanta was building. They were building
Hmm.
bridges, they were accommodating,
They had tax breaks there too, right? In Atlanta?
huge incentives. So, yeah,
Yeah.
and for nothing really at that time because you have the whole state to contend with. So, everything left. But before
Hmm.
that was, amazing to work in South Florida. Anybody can tell you that around during, even the 80s, 90s was just high day of fun productions. I mean, we were casting for print, for TV, for film, for commercials, voiceover, nonstop.
Yeah.
I'm lucky to be a part of that development and those times because really, with the not as high technology, things definitely were at a slower pace, and it
Hmm.
gave somebody like me even an opportunity to learn more because it
Yeah.
wasn't fast. I mean, waiting for a script revision. You had so much time just waiting for someone who was probably
Hmm.
a delivery driver to come with a new script that then you had to make copies and give to the actors, had to come to the casting office and pick up their new script, and there was just so much more time to really consider who you were going to present to this casting for your client.
Yeah.
We really counted on these headshots and resumes, and And casting was everything then, because
So, I'm sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you give me a basic breakdown for anyone that doesn't understand about what your job as a casting director does? Yeah, and then what how you look to prepare someone that you're an actor or actress to, or do you not say? I don't know I'm not up with the parlance, but to prepare an actor for their
so
roles.
casting for roughly 35 years now. Been able to be in the casting business, which is really fantastic. It's the best job ever, honestly. Handing some a ticket sometimes,
Uh-huh.
really, these that come up. So casting comes to fruition by a job, say a commercial, or a car. Honda, they want to advertise their car, so they're going to contact an ad agency, put um, something together, whether it's point of purchase, billboards, a commercial, whatever it is that they're doing, car shows, they help them. So the ad agency then has a creative director, they develop storyboards, they have an agency director that oversees it all, and they then hire production companies. But first, those production companies need to bid on the job to see who they're going to, and that ties in talent. Their director. It's a exciting process, very very creative on what people come up with, and
Hmm.
that agency decides on who they're going to put this job to. So those are big terms for us. If something's awarded and is in production,
Hmm.
those and that usually is contacted, and I can be contacted by three different production companies on the same job, knowing that they're bidding. And the great thing
Wow.
in the mix, which is really exciting. This was back in how we used to do things. Now it's very. Uh,
When you were doing that and you had the same script and you were looking at different production companies, would you, based on the production company, like I know that obviously there's a million interpretations of ways to read scripts and ways for different actors to present the script. Would you kind of present each of them with a different twist on the script when the actor is auditioning, or would you try to keep the same one for all three?
well, so when you're getting people bidding on your jobs, they're calling you for your casting budget. They're
Oh,
giving
okay.
those. You're not even getting a script yet. You're getting an idea of, we're looking for 5 talent, 10 talent, depending.
Hmm.
Have an idea of the spectrum of the, if it's a lot of people, if it's one certain hero, if it's whatever it is,
Yeah.
you know, and it's frustrating sometimes because you're not really hired yet on the job, but people are kind of picking your brain. That's a really popular term that
Yeah.
I understand.
I
Because
get that all the time, by the way, in my industry too. People
yeah,
call me for, I sell medical equipment. People call me. They'll be like, "Can you tell me about this, this, and this machine?" I'll be like, "Sure." And they hang up the phone and they buy it from someone else because they have all the information I just gave them. And I'm like, "Why would you do that?"
stop doing that, because that was really a pet peeve for me. Is as soon as I got that even line, oh, I just wanted to pick. It was like, well, I really charged for that. So I started charging for that. But anyway, director would call and kind of pick your brain on, their idea on what they're thinking, and if you can start thinking about it, and
Hmm.
you weren't even hired, so it was kind of like, oh. But if it was an award-winning director and somebody that you had a relationship with, you certainly wanted to
Yeah.
start, the wheels turning, and it was always great to get that much heads up, also. So yeah, then you would get, the job would get awarded, and you would get the so you initially get casting specs. So that means we're looking for, women 35 to 45, or dad.
Hmm.
Say, if it's a car commercial,
Yeah.
we have parents, we need kids, we need to cast the before we know what the kids look like. There's going to be a dog, so we need to be aware of allergies and fear and whatever. And so you kind of get that, and then what casting does is, where are we going to find this? So we are very resourceful depending on what those specs are.
Right.
Asian baseball team, if it's a an I'm mad. I remember, I'm trying that are harder to find always. A stunt double, a body
Hmm.
that has specific height and features that are, very hard to. I remember trying to find a body double once for Claudia Schiffer, who was a supermodel back in the 80s. And she was just a freak of nature, how tall and gorgeous with this tiny waist and these shoulders. And it was, nobody looked like her. That's why she was a supermodel.
Yeah.
Uh, have to find all these people, somebody that can hang out of a helicopter or, whatever.
I have a
So
buddy that could do that, by the way. And I just did a podcast with a gentleman that's a stunt double, and he just told me he got rigged to a helicopter for the first time. And I'm like, I don't know how you do that stuff, man. It's crazy.
that represent certain people,
Hmm.
there's people that represent more pretty people, the models. There's acting, specifically. There's some acting agencies don't represent children, so or voiceover actors. So you, as a casting director, that's what people are hiring you for.
Uh-huh.
Is resources. Where are you going to find, this crowd of people at a concert or, at a stadium or whatever? This is really, before AI and before what's called the cardboard people, which is a big thing in LA, is
What's that?
you can pay to have your image put on a cardboard cutout.
No way.
Paid to have your image. Yep. So they're cardboards. There's just people in
So
stands.
people in the background, you're watching a Netflix show or a HBO show, and there could be people in the background that are bystanders that are just literally cardboard
Card,
cutouts?
cardboard cutouts. Yep.
Get out. That is crazy.
There's the cardboard people.
It's the pre-AI AI.
It,
It's what everyone was afraid of before
there
AI happening.
Yes, and then it started, having agencies just for background, because if you're a principal casting director, they really don't want you doing their background because they want you to focus on the principals, and that was a big problem for me because I wanted to do it all. I wanted,
Right.
I have a crew, you know, but they didn't want you to, and I preferred that. I preferred the background because that meant also I could be on set sometimes
Yeah.
with and I could see what, because a casting director rarely goes to a set. We stay in the studio pretty much auditioning talent or reviewing. So the opportunity for me to go on set was, I loved it. And that's where
How
I,
what would come up that you would be called on set? What would the
I,
scenario be?
I was hiring background. If I was a casting coordinator, if I
Oh,
had
I see.
I've done thousands of music videos. That's when you really need somebody just coordinating and
Hmm.
contracts and making sure people their time and safety if there's kids or whatever. So
Sure.
I've been an intimacy coach. I've been
Oh, wow. What was that like? That's
oh
probably crazy, right?
yes. Well, now things have changed where you really need to have licensing, and I would need to get some kind of a special degree. But back then, they're like, no, we really need you as the buffer between,
Yeah.
if there was a child on set with an adult, and they even had to put their arm on their shoulder, uh,
Wow.
or
Really? That's
yeah.
good. I mean, that's important. That's really important.
Now on every set, pretty much, there's an intimacy coordinator, coach, or safety person, just to be there. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
if kind of interaction. So I enjoyed all of that. If I did baby wrangling,
What's
you
that?
so if there's a diaper commercial and we need 6 babies and then we need 6 backup babies, there's a lot of doing.
No way. What do you
Babies.
do for that? How
Those
do
are
you
the
find people?
best ever because once those babies are hired and on set, you want to keep the baby karma just happy, the juju going, everybody, because one baby starts crying, it's all over.
Yeah.
So you want to really just, keep everybody happy and a lot of toys and just
Wow.
a lot of rocking, a lot of playing. I love all those sets. I've been on every kind of set you can imagine. From somebody just doing hand modeling, where I've come in and done hand modeling when that actor couldn't for whatever reason. Just been available. So this is back in the day when casting was done on 3/4 deck machines, and you had
Mhm.
one, and it was like this Bible pretty
Yeah.
much. That was your whole casting, and these clients were relying on you. And oftentimes they would pay me to go to London, to go to Canada, to go through customs and security so that nothing happened to this tape. Because when you go through an X-ray machine, you're it's demagnetized.
Oh, yeah.
easily. And so many times we were called with clients saying, "There's nothing. There's no audio. There's nothing." And I mean, tragic because you've
So what
just
do you
done.
have to do? So what do you do about that?
Oh, you always make a backup is what I've learned very early on. But
Yeah.
backups would be a half inch, which is VHS. It's
Yeah.
just shit, crappy quality. So, it, and then you get the feedback, and you've done all this work, and you to have an unhappy client was just like, oh my god, if the audio wasn't good, and those days, nothing was good. But
Hmm.
really, it was, it's just like an actor now, like I was saying, that has to struggle with the tech. Casting directors really were more known for directing talent, not really knowing the tech side as well. So
Hmm.
equally as challenging. And as that tech started to change, if you were not up on the tech side of being able to upload and, all that, you were really left out.
Yeah.
So that was game changer for every business, as you know. But mostly casting because clients knew they could get things faster and faster, and it started to become this thing like, well, like, do you want me to actually find the right people, or do you just want me to send you bodies like of who's available? And
Yeah.
it got even worse during COVID because then it was like, all right, are we hiring actors, or are we hiring people that don't aren't sick?
Yeah.
It got to be this constant testing,
And that
testing,
was years. That went on for years.
yes. So you had to test before wardrobe, you had to test, before you got to set, you had to, and that was a game changer because if somebody tested positive and they were about, to be on set, it was just like, well, what do we have? You got to
Yeah.
have your. So it was a nightmare, honestly, and it drew me away from casting and into more of my studio, where I could help people with the tech side more, with auditioning really well for their different projects. They didn't have to be my projects, and it
Hmm.
was really, liberating to just be away from the pressure of the client too, and just help people with a casting perspective of, okay, this is really what this client wants to see and feel from you. So
Hmm.
help people understand more about the auditioning process. And that is what I love. I don't make half as much as what I used to, but I'm happier. I can't
That's
see as well, watching a lot of tapes constantly, whether, I'm watching from my phone or a tablet, or my, desktop, laptop, whatever. It's constant screen time.
yeah.
So that's really hard. And
Yeah.
I said, as wonderful as it is to have that flexibility of scheduling, and you have a more diverse talent pool with not seeing people in person. Um, it's hard to not be able to redirect somebody during a live audition and make that quick change, or, the volumes of submissions now can just be overwhelming with the amount of people that are.
I feel like it's almost like a little like a mini ecosystem of like what the job market in general is like. Where like it used to be that you could like knock on someone's door and say, "Hey, I'm looking for an internship. I'm looking for a job," and then the world went to resumes. And now that the world of resumes is so flooded, one of the only ways to kind of do it is to make connections, you know. And I feel like it's the same thing with I feel like actors went through the same process, just in the microscopic, Hollywood of the world or acting of the world.
Difficult to, yes, break into it that way. So I like to help people in a safe way, because it can be very unsafe as well, as you know, on
Yeah.
people in different directions or promising you, all kinds of things. And especially kids, because they see the TikTokers just making money, and
What do you What do you think of kid actors, and what do you think of TikTok and all this stuff?
well,
From after
no,
being in the industry for so long.
yeah, it's frustrating for sure, because you will see somebody, make it overnight. There's a little Russian girl that is very popular with her YouTube videos in our area, just because these kids just keep hitting replay, 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 because of what they're offering on the YouTube show that she has, which is, I've seen it. It's ridiculously, basic, and I think unintelligent, but whatever. It's colorful.
Mhm.
It's it draws them in with the sounds and the effects and the silliness of what she does and the characters. So I could see it definitely will appeal to a toddler.
Mhm.
that one that can just keep hitting replay.
Yeah.
And so, that's how she's become so successful, ridiculously successful. I mean, this, it's crazy what the numbers that I hear and see. And
The
I,
numbers are staggering. The numbers are staggering.
yes, I've asked to be, can you help us cast on these shows? And yes, I would, because as soon as I mention it to even some of my students, they're like, oh my God, yes, I'd love to do it. And they're willing to do it, of course, for free. Um, so I try to facilitate in the right way, but sometimes I see, well, wow, she's making millions and millions of dollars, but you're paying the people that you want to be on the show like nothing, $100 for 10 hours. And, so it's very difficult, my position being that in between.
Yeah.
I need, accessible to my client and help them, but I also want to be accessible to the talent and help them,
Yeah.
things they don't understand. And so there is a fine line there, um, for just being in that position. um, I love doing what I'm doing because I know when someone comes to me and they have a talented child and they know that there's opportunities for them, I love to be able to guide them in the right direction,
Mhm.
and be very realistic.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks their child is wonderfully talented. Um, so I like to expose them to, whether it's a manager that would guide them and look for things for that particular talent, or an agent that will help get opportunities and, pass them on to casting. So I've become a coach in that way, where I'm not an actor. And in the beginning, I really wasn't marketing myself as a coach because I felt like, well, I'm not a coach. I'm not an actor. I've never taken an acting course. But then I realized my years in front of, clients basically, and working with talent, watching videos, watching auditions, being in that callback room to hear what
Yeah.
clients are saying about talent in these videos, and has given me great perspective in knowing what is needed on an audition.
Uh-huh.
What I like to teach when people come to me and they say, "Oh, I want to join your acting school," and I'm like, "Well, it's really not an acting school. I don't teach acting. I definitely have actors that work for me that are coaches that can teach you, the foundations of acting, and what methods they use. I teach auditioning, and any class that I have is an auditioning class. I will give you a script, and we will break down that script, and we'll talk about your character and, how you can make the most out of your audition opportunity.
Hmm.
But for acting, I send them elsewhere because it's like learning a new instrument.
Yeah.
You have to just pick it up and start and be dedicated, and that repetition is huge. That
Hmm.
you're going to have much time and effort as you would anything that you want to learn really well. So,
That's
um,
a breaking realization for me too, by the way. That anything I wanted to be good at, I had to put a lot of time into, and it would have just happened by itself. And I was like, well, that stinks because I would like to be good at everything, you know?
yeah, and there's so much time, so you have to really, um, you have to really be realistic for sure. Everything takes time. There's a great book called 10,000 Hours that's been recommended to me for actors. I think it does really, even if you happen to hit it big. There's been so many stories of I've had a little boy that was about 8 or 9 years old that was practicing auditions with me on a regular basis, and the mom had a great relationship with me, and on knowing what the goals were for her child. And he had talent. He was very thoughtful, and could, if a child can express things before they've ever even experienced them,
Yes.
like, all right, wow, they're deep. There's something
The
that you want to.
storytellers.
Yeah, they have this, they want to explore that more.
Hmm.
So this boy got a wonderful opportunity to be, in a movie that was, in the Academy Awards.
Yes.
So
Amazing.
really, a very short time, he's walking the red carpet with his mom, and it just seemed, like mind blowing that they went from this to that. And the problem is, a lot of people I've found in all these decades is as soon as they hit it in some way, they drop what they've been doing.
Yes.
I am immediately disconnected from them because I believe they think that there's so much more out there then, and
Hmm.
that go and I'm not saying I'm not trying to like you know boost my ego that way, but you really should stay where you've always been in some
Forget your
capacity,
roots. Don't forget your roots. Don't forget where you came from.
touching in and making sure, because those are the people that helped you get where you are, even though definitely it's a launching pad, but unfortunately those other people don't have the same relationship with you yet. And there's so many people out there that are guiding you in different directions.
Sure.
So have something, imagine you have a product, right? And you just came up with something amazing, like this mouse, right? Nobody had this mouse before. It's amazing. You came up with it. You're selling it like hotcakes. Everybody that you're selling it to wants to know what's next.
Hmm.
What, come on, because we're already on this, and a lot of those actors, they don't have what's next.
Yeah.
They don't have a foundation of representation that's going to be able to say, oh, I'm marketing this job. This kid just booked this huge Hollywood movie. We've got this for them. So, because they didn't develop those relationships. So, if they had come back to their original source of, support, I think
Hmm.
that they would have been more successful because we're all rooting for them. We're all like, yeah, we want to be a part of this as well. So to just flee the nest is always kind of like, wow. And then you see that there's nothing for them after. And the
Yeah.
kind of goes for, a lot of talent that way. They just kind of,
Wonders.
they turn into teenagers, and then, there's not a lot of work for teens unless you've already got that, you know, great representation, that base.
Does that typically happen more with young actors as opposed to adults?
Yeah, 6 to 11 years old is really a peak. 9 is absolutely perfect. 8, 9 years old, especially if you're as on the small side. If
Hmm.
you have, small features, you're short. If you know, typically, if I don't know if you've ever met anybody famous that's an actor, but they're all pretty small. They're
You
not
know
really.
what? I think it's so funny that you say that because one of the reasons I don't think I've ever been able to identify a celebrity in a crowd ever because I'm always used to them being like the front center of the screen, and so seeing them like blend, just a regular person blended in with the rest of the world, I almost don't even know to look for them. Like I wouldn't even know to like recognize them. I feel like.
Really big features. Like
Yeah.
even The Rock. We got to work with The Rock so much here in South Florida,
What was he
especially
like?
here. Uh, Wonderful person. Doesn't really like, to be around a lot of talent. We had two doors, which was very helpful when he was working because, he didn't have to constantly have people talking and approaching him. But overall, everybody thinks he's this massive guy, but he has massive features. He has really giant arms, and he's got a big head.
Yeah.
Um, but it's height wise. I mean, my son was just as tall as him.
Really? How tall is he?
He was 6'4", 6'5",
Oh.
but overall, when you see, his
Yeah,
features,
yeah. He looks like the Hulk in movies. I mean, he looks like a human version of the Hulk.
he's really not. He's really not that big. He's just, like I said, those features are big. I actually bought a truck from him, and I would get stopped all the time because the tints were so dark; they were illegal.
Oh yeah.
So, and this is before everybody, would drive SUVs, and really, it was right at that time where instead of even a limo, you wanted a black truck. So, I was constantly pulled over, and I still had his registration of Dwayne Johnson. Uh,
No.
I would reach for him. I didn't even know really who he was at the time when I bought the truck. I had no idea that they were telling me The Rock. I was like, I really don't follow wrestling. I don't really know who that is. But then, of course, I would see the TV guide, and him
Yeah.
muscles. Like, oh, I know him now. And then when I got into casting, I shared a studio. after I moved to North Carolina and then I moved back here, I shared a studio with a recording studio. And
Mhm.
it was great because I really got to understand the world of voiceover, which I love and I'll talk to you more about. But
I'm
the
sorry about that. But
yeah,
sure.
they're steady clients because they also did a lot of ADR work, which is like dubbing. Um,
Okay.
so that's like when you insert a line that's missing or not. So he was there for hours, for days, for everything. It's so funny. What got them the job, though, their little studio in Hollywood. Really, you would never even know the studio was there because it's on a residential street. And he would pull up in a regular truck, like nobody really knew, like that he was there. But the reason we got that job at the studio is because of the microwave. He would warm up his food. He had these protein meals that was like baby food almost that he would
Oh,
eat training like every 3 hours. And he had an assistant that would go and warm it up. And the microwave had to be a certain wattage. So when he was going around looking at studios,
no way. That's what he was looking for.
came in and pretty much looked at the studio. Yeah, this is great, but can I see your microwave? And looked at our microwave and opened it up and took a picture of the
Do you think
wattage. Like
everyone has that shtick? Do you find that a lot? Do you find that
that's
everyone has that kind of shticks?
that's what
Huh?
got us. I said that's what got us the job though, which was amazing. What
Yeah.
was your area?
I'm sorry. Do a lot of have you noticed that a lot of people have that kind of shtick, or the bigger name people like have these. I don't want to call them absurd because obviously there's a reason for them, but like what seems silly to like a casting director or someone like.
So we had one girl that was very popular, and I'm sorry even to say girl because I think she's the first transgender child that made it somewhat known. Her name is escaping me now, but she wrote a book and then she had a TV show documenting. I don't know if you know about it, but it was about 8 years ago, and she was really famous for being the first teen really to you know come out and be a trans. Um, she would go into the session because she was recording her voice as well.
Yeah.
The book. This girl, boy, I'm sorry, I suppose is a term, and I'm very, I don't mean to be, offending any
I
that
think yeah. Yeah.
generation, so please forgive me. I don't mean anybody harm, but this person loved donuts, would eat nonstop donuts throughout the whole session.
Oh
Like
boy.
we were blown away, like this, because we always ask, what would the artist like? Because we want to be prepared. The Rock loved that Voss water in the glass bottles, which at
Sure.
one time finds like I was so excited when I found like a case of them somewhere at some little dinky grocery store once.
Sure.
Uh, this yes, donuts was nonstop for this one artist. What? The voice of Jay Peterman from Seinfeld, Mr. What was his name in Seinfeld? Her boss. Uh,
Oh! I know who you're talking about. He was great. Elaine's boss, right? He had a very short, abrupt voice. I know who you're talking about.
oh, so wonderful. I can't. I have to look up the actor, but he's so amazing. He played Mr. Peterman though on
Yeah.
Seinfeld. But he is actually the voice of so many. His real name is George Hurley, John Hurley. So he was Mr. Peterman in Seinfeld, but he has done amazing things in the voice world alone.
Yeah.
I mean, he's on SpongeBob and
What's his name with Pixar? John. He was Norm's buddy from
yeah,
Cheers.
all of
That
so yeah, this studio really
he's in
got.
every Pixar movie, I think, right?
Let's say that again.
I think what's his name? John something
Yes,
is in every Pixar movie. I think has a voiceover appearance in every Pixar movie. It's so much fun.
so is John O'Hurley. If you really look up his IMDb,
Yeah, I'll look him up.
the amount of voices. I mean, Phineas and Ferb, and you know,
What's
he
that world like? What's voice? Because it's so funny because you have like superstars, that like want to do these fun animated. Like I mean, even Tom Hanks originally with Toy Story. What?
it with fun because voiceover is so much fun. You don't have to worry about what you look like physically. You're in
Yeah.
a, you can have your hair however, flip-flops. You're watching a screen, you're reading. You don't have to memorize. And you can get so creative with your voice. You can have so much fun and really develop characters that you just need to be consistent with. That is the real issue that people have is I can create a voice like this, but how long can I keep talking like that? How
Yeah.
long remember that that's the voice that I want to, I have to name that voice and go back to it. And it can't be more of the, the boy voice of, oh, everybody sucks. And, so you have to really identify different, just characters
Yeah.
and be consistent with them and not just a few words. You have to, everything that you say has to be that way. And it's just like a character development for being on camera.
Yeah,
You have,
sure.
you have to really, you have to know, the good, the bad, the ugly, who their family is, what they like, what they don't like,
Yeah.
what religion are they like. It's very important to put that kind of time in. And then, that's what you get is you get this, you know, the end result, which is whatever
Good.
you create. So
Do talent typically look at, or from your experience, look at voiceover work almost like a break from acting? Like,
a
if I'm
break
Tom,
from
I mean,
acting?
sorry?
No, at all. A break from acting?
Yeah, like I would imagine if I did Castaway and Big and all these movies, and then I went into the studio and I recorded for Woody to be in Toy Story. I imagine that I would almost.
Like I just said, it's even harder to stay in that consistent voice. And you're first of all, you're getting direction, only through headphones. You're not really seeing anything, which is a different skill to learn how to interpret that.
Yeah.
Um, the voices in your head are telling you what to do. You have to give so many different takes. You have to act even more. Here's a great example for you. Okay, this is the fundamentals even of just acting. The line I'm going to give you is so simple. It's called, or it is, that was fast. That's all I want you to say.
Yeah.
And what's called an ABC read. So you're going to give me three different versions of saying that was fast.
Okay.
Okay, go.
Um, that was fast. That was fast. Uh, that was fast.
Okay, so that was great that you did that. But mostly, weren't you doing it based on your tone? On thinking like, oh, I have to say it a different way so that
Scenarios that I would be saying that was fast and like, yeah.
so first one.
So that was fast was a little bit surprised. I almost imagine if like my wife went out to the supermarket and I was expecting her to take an hour and she comes back after half an hour. And
So
when she walks, I go, whoa, that was fast. That's
okay,
one.
that's great. And the second one.
Then there's one to process where if I ask my students to do an assignment, right, an essay, and then they come back to me after 20 minutes, I'm like, that was fast. Like I'm a little skeptical. I don't almost believe what they're saying.
Right?
And there's the just like that was my days it, but it's hard to think of a third case, I guess.
That's acting.
Yeah,
So reacting off something. So you're ahead of the game even by thinking of scenarios because most people don't. Most people just think it's the sound. I need to say it differently so it sounds different. But it's not. They're reactions to scenarios.
yeah,
You're exactly right. Tapping into thinking, even our session, our time together, like that
yeah.
was fun. So everything. So I could give you a different line that I'm not comfortable, and you could do the same thing.
Um, not so comfortable. I'm
Not
not comfortable with that.
right. Wait. So you're adding. I'm not so comfortable. You're adding the word so, and you're
Oh
acting
yes, does that? How much does that matter? Can I ask about that?
crucial that you stick to this
Crucial.
line. Yes, that's the hardest thing for people is they want to add things all the time. So you can add things like nonverbals, which are like, or you can make
Yeah.
sound to help that reaction, but you can't change the words.
one of my favorite parts of acting, and one of my favorite parts of just like when I watch a really well done or well made movie, is often what's not said in between the lines or in between the words, and how a character can use an actor can use the whole body to say something that is not in the script. And I watch that and I'm like, this is where the magic comes in. This is like
That is acting. That is acting. Take the lines away, and what is the scenario? Sum it
Mhm.
up. Face, your body, your exactly. Body language is huge. So that's my biggest thing. And what I do in auditions is, I give somebody a script and I let them do it how they've been practicing probably a million times before they got to the studio, and see what they came up with. What do they instinctively want to do? Because it's kind of like you got to get it out anyway. You got to, otherwise they'd be like, well, I thought of doing it this way. But it's even harder if you have the first line. Because if I gave you, so I have a script here in front of me. Let's see if there's anything in here that I could use for you. Uh, okay, so it says, the first line is, you're lying.
You're lying.
So if I have you coming into an audition
Mhm.
on the mark, and you're lit and you're mic'd and you're ready to go, and there's someone behind the camera, and we say, okay, Ephraim, ready? And action. And you say,
You're lying.
right. So that is the thing though. Remember, the word that I'm saying is action. So it doesn't mean start talking. It means
Oh,
you're lying. Why are you saying it? What's going on? What is the scene?
right.
So that
Right.
is exactly when you want to use your body.
So how often is I'm sure I know I've heard with a lot of actors, based on interviews or whatever, reading about it, um that there's usually a collaboration between like creating the setting and like the context for when you are shooting, that like there's a history for the actor to fall back on to kind of snap themselves into that zone. Do you create that too?
So, not in the audition process, no. So, that is being in an audition and being on set is night and day, really. You think like sometimes you're not even doing what you did in that audition. Everything can change. So, that's what's so important about getting real set experience, also. And that's something we offer at my studio. We create content for people so they can actually be on a set before they're on a set, because
Awesome.
those are things that people don't teach you. You just have to kind of figure out. Just like me with casting, I had no idea when I started casting, how to really work with people, until I had to really work with people. I was kind of thrown into that job, and I was doing everything I was told to do from my boss. But then, it takes you a while until you learn your own style and see what really works. So, and every set is different, every audition's different. So you have to be flexible for sure. You have to really know how to take direction, which is, a lot of people don't have common sense.
Oh, I think listening skills is a huge issue today. I noticed that with my high school
Not
students.
active listening.
Yes.
Active listening is going to make you make those faces naturally and react, because you're listening, you're really hearing. So I always say, don't just say your line, let it hit. Let somebody, their
Awesome.
line is
Yeah.
important. What the other actor is saying is more important than your line, because that's going to give you, you know, just an idea of how to say your line.
Yeah.
They're yelling at you, if they're, so your scene partner, even though they're off camera, is crucial. It is a dance. That's what I always, it's a dance. It's like, take my hands, we're on it together, eye contact, eye lines, knowing what you're really seeing in a room. When you're seeing, you have to see it. You have
Mhm.
to see it. If I tell somebody, cruise line commercials are so, constant in South Florida, that
Fun.
so
Is
I
it
could
sitting on
say,
those sound?
yeah, you could just look behind me and I could say, find somebody on that cruise as you're leaving port and wave to them. So go ahead, do that. Find somebody. Nope, by me,
Oh,
behind me.
sorry.
Yeah, find somebody behind. Yeah, and you see them and you wave to them. So most people do the wave right away. And then what if the camera doesn't stop? What else do? You've already given it away. So you
Uh,
lead up. find somebody.
Yeah.
Your time doing that because that's the exploration. That's the part that we want, you know.
Beautiful.
Let's find,
Beautiful.
and then oh, they end up finding somebody down there. Hey, at the end way, because otherwise you're just doing this, and then you're like, oh crap, they didn't say cut. Oh, I've already done. Like, how many
Yeah.
times can you give? You
Yeah.
know,
You have to have, you can't empty out your entire toolkit at one time.
and listen to find somebody, and then
Mhm.
wait. So we do a lot of those kind of things in my studio. I do a class that's called self tape domination because so many people need to understand what is needed in these self tapes when it comes to somebody else watching them. And
Yeah.
I a class because then the class can also be the client and
Yeah.
see, how did that make you feel? If you're
Mhm.
the client, first of all, what are we looking for? You know, what do we want to feel from this? Let's make sure that that's what you're giving when you're on camera. You're not so just worried about the dialogue, the dialogue, the dialogue. So many people have issues now with memorization. I believe it's the phone erasing our brains. I'm honestly
I don't think
really
you're, I think it's certainly a big impact.
more of kids for sure. Kids,
Sure.
you my studio and do 3 scenes, pages and pages and pages. I can't tell you how that has changed. The
It's not
scenes are
either, by the way, I don't think.
what's
Because
that?
like I don't think it's that we can't. I think that we've like it's a skill that we have to. It's like a muscle that we have to exercise, and if we don't exercise it, then it falls away.
So it starts with the kids though, and unfortunately, they are at a huge loss with that. Um, it's very sad that and they cannot retain. I can tell a child we're doing voiceover, so it's a line read. That means it's a young child that maybe doesn't even know how to read yet. So I'm giving them a line that says, "Help, help me bring it back,"
Mm.
and they'll help so she can bring it back. Like, no, help me bring it back, and they'll just like short out on me, and it's like,
Yeah.
help me bring it back. So, then we have to sing songs also, and we have to make songs aligned with certain music that we have to insert the songs. It's very tiresome because of that memorization skill that is just shot now.
Yeah.
So, monitors that people can actually read from, that even as an actor, I will put the monitor here, and that becomes your screen partner. And we're
Mhm.
basically rolling the lines for you.
Cool.
Yes and no. I mean, it's
I mean,
sad.
it's with what you have, I guess, right? Meaning, it's a you came across a problem, you had to come up with a creative solution.
Yes.
Uh,
The old people are a little bit better of saying, I don't want the monitor. I really want to just,
Get it?
understand. But they usually have to do a lot more takes because they just, they get frustrated too. Like, God, I had it. So yesterday was a really fun audition with a celebrity actor that came in that, the first line was, I will kill you, motherfucker. First line. So it was just so fun to work with this actor because I knew obviously they had that line down, but when it came to just the other things, instead of saying like listen, if you want to, the line was, if you want to build in Manhattan, and they kept saying something else, if you want to buy property, or if you want to, like, they couldn't remember that line, build, for whatever reason. And I tried to convince them, it please don't get hung up on that one word. You're saying the same thing. It's
Yeah.
really how you're doing it. So, but actors get very attached to the lines and making sure. Some people think that just because they're wearing something that is, something and that actor would wear, that that's going to help them get the part. I had an actress that came in last week that it was a part that definitely was more in the 70s, 80s than current day, and she
Mhm.
was, and so hung up on that she didn't have a real pencil
Mhm.
in her ear, and it was like it's it's not gonna it's
I
not
think
gonna
because
get you.
there's such little security that I feel like you have to be able to, like, I think people grasp for anything that could make them feel more potentially secure. No, this is part of the role that I'm.
And it's
Sorry.
hard. Really can't use props and things like that. So I am a good. I believe in props as long as I can't see them. If it's
Hmm.
going you. So if you're sitting and you're supposed to be at it, I like the sitting and the table. I think that's very important. Where other casting directors will say, just stand, it's better for your energy. But that actor then is like, whoa, I'm supposed to be sitting. And they're so, locked into that. So I just do what I think you're supposed to be doing. It's just when you're using, the prop as a crutch.
Hmm.
I was so fortunate enough to work on this series, Jane the Virgin, when it first came out. And in auditions, we were casting for the mother, and the mother was a real bitch. And in one scene, she's putting on lipstick as she's talking to her daughter about how horrible like her husband is. But she's putting on lipstick. I Every actress had lipstick, and it didn't matter about the lipstick.
Yeah.
You could just use your finger, but be that, but they were so locked into it. Was just crazy to me that I was like, really? Just, it doesn't matter. But they all, as soon as they arrived, they all brought that lipstick and
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think it's the thing that they cling to. It's the grounding force that allows them some kind of security. Can
yeah,
I ask you one last question before I let you go? I'm so sorry. Uh,
absolutely.
I'm really having a blast, by the way. I hope we do this again.
Yeah,
Because to me, this is like I'm like a kid in a candy store hearing all this stuff.
to the studio sometime and just, I mean,
Yeah, I would love to.
before you ask me, anybody can be in TV, commercials, film, voiceover. Like we talked about, you need to just train. You need to start somewhere. No one
Hmm.
is old or too young. We cast from babies to senior citizens. You see what's on TV. You see what's on movies. All of those ages are needed.
Yeah.
So you just need to know how to do it. And that's really what I love sharing with people. Is
What's the
this
name?
started. This is where I'm your foundation. I love being a guide. I like to just help people because I've seen people overnight. I mean, I met a girl once. I was in a Starbucks line and she was next to me, and I was casting for, I think it was an insurance commercial. And I just knew looking at this girl, this is what this client has sent me in their specs. This girl, I have to talk to her. And
Wow.
it can be creepy, like, hi, but fortunately, there's more women casting directors, I believe.
Seems nice enough that if you approached me, I'd be like, oh well, thanks. I'd like to hear about that.
I have a card on me, so I'm not just like take my number.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I like people. If somebody approached me with that card, I would definitely do my research. I would make sure that they're reputable. Look at reviews.
Hmm.
Um, See what they've done. See that it's a real thing, not just somebody wanting to. No one should charge you money at all for being an agent or representing you. They're going to make their money off of you. But when it comes to training, you really shouldn't spend a lot up front because you don't know if it's just going to be something like a tennis. Not everything is for everyone, but at least try. Just because you have a great voice does not mean that you're going to be a great voiceover actor. It's just important to learn from the very basics.
You're
And
making me want to come in. You're really enticing me. I
but
really want to. Yeah,
for everyone, if you watch TV, you see
I know.
now,
Yeah, sure.
we could never have a guy with a beard, facial hair on especially a commercial
Yeah.
ever. Especially with food,
Hmm.
never. Now
Yeah.
anything goes. So I encourage people, if this is their dream, um, go for it. Definitely. There's a place for everyone. And there's plenty of backgrounds, agencies now, if you just want to be on set and see what that's like. That's a great way to start.
It's really
I'm
cool.
happy to recommend. I like to meet somebody and give them um, a, a certain criteria for me. I like to do at least 3 sessions that I can see that they are on time for every session, that they are prepared, and
Hmm.
that really make an effort to put in a little bit of homework for just 3 sessions, because that shows me that they're professional, they're on time, they're dedicated.
Yeah.
Because late, even for a class, that's what I remember.
Yeah.
And my job is to get you on a set, and I'm not doing it. If somebody's late for my class, it's an
Can't do
instant
it.
my brain on, nope, they're going to be late. I'm going to be the one that gets that phone call. Where are they?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
definitely.
a lot of set training, and we do things like that just for that purpose.
There's like set etiquette. Okay.
Percent. And that's our first classes. If you take a voiceover class, the first class is voiceover etiquette. First, the same thing on
That's
set.
so great. It's so great. It's so cool. Because I don't think anyone thinks about this kind of stuff, but it's also important, especially when when you think of making a commercial or making a show or a film or anything. Like these are like enormous operations and projects, and like it really like I know for myself, even like I sell an ultrasound machine, and from point A, from leaving my warehouse to point B to my customer, there's 10 things that could go wrong along the way every single time that holds things up. And the customer and the customer does not care about any of them. So I need to make sure that everyone is flawless along the way. If a freight company comes 2 days late, sorry, pal, I can't work with you anymore. You know, like it
Yeah,
just yeah.
I could be come off as a total bitch to parents. Walk in my door, I say the same thing. If you're late to my class, then there's no way I'm recommending you on a set until you show me that you're not going to be late. And or if you bring a sick child in, something like that, like right away, I am making this is what is going to happen to you if you arrive on a set. They're going to send you.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I'm a total realist that way. That
Right.
when people start texting me for class, oh, I'm in traffic. There's traffic. Are you kidding me? Really?
That's got to be the most classic thing you've heard throughout your career, right? Is I'm gonna be late. I'm in traffic.
Traffic? Really? On a Friday at 5 o'clock in Miami?
Yeah.
Really? Kidding. But I say, don't even text. Nobody wants to hear it. Get there as much time as you need to earlier and wait in your car.
Yeah.
Start texting because nobody cares.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
Well,
really when people start telling me, if I send out even info about something that's happening and they give me all the reasons why they can't do it, just
I gotcha.
kindly decline. That's all. I can't do it. That's it. You don't have to tell me why. I don't want to really know. Just yes or no. I
Yeah.
need things I got to do.
Yeah.
What was your question? Sorry, I interrupted.
My question was, and we can make this shorter. We could even carry this over into the next conversation for the next time if you have to run. But I want to ask you about the notion of being typecast as opposed to like a diverse career. And what So like I think off the top of my head, Timothy Chalamet, whatever, however you pronounce his first name,
Yeah,
like he just, I mean. Between Bob Dylan and Willy Wonka and Dune and like he's one of these guys that it seems like can do anything. And
well,
then you
that's
have
that's an
huh?
act.
That's an
That's
actor. But you have actors that spend 20, 30 years in a career pretty much doing the same role for, for film after film.
that's
Um,
also.
that's what?
That's representation. Also,
Oh
they're
yeah.
thinking that's all they have. We do something in my studio. People that want to get into commercials. It's called a demo slate shot. And it's basically the actor introducing themselves because every audition starts with a slate. So you would introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Kim Houston. I'm 5'8". I'm in Miami. Something like that. You do profiles, you show your hands, you show all the basics. So we record somebody doing that head to toe as well.
Hmm.
Um, then we do 3 different scenarios with them that are totally different from the look that they're presenting in that slate.
Cool.
Right
Cool.
away, we see them as a nurse with their hair back. We see them as, a mechanic. We see them because wardrobe's important. And I noticed doing these, and then I send them to agents on the actor's behalf. The agent, oh, I didn't know that they could do that, or I could, because the agent doesn't have as much imagination as you think if they're just seeing the same headshot all the time.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's what actors do is they communicate without always giving. Every time you communicate with someone that's representing you, should be an opportunity to show them something new, even if it's just a screenshot. This is what I look like with brown hair. This is what I look like with, I can be versatile. I can ride a bike. Here's a picture of me riding a bike. Like, you really need to constantly be working at marketing yourself in a variety that's going to get people to remember because it's all about visual. It's not really about, the one, oh, because I can remember people just from their headshots. And if that's all they're showing me, that's all I remember.
Yeah.
Content is huge these days, and short, sweet, little quick moments will make people really remember you.
Sure.
So, and so that's what we like to do in the studio is get creative and help people just get seen.
So
So
you do try to avoid having one kind of slate or one trick pony, I guess you would call it like that.
sometimes, I watch so many videos that I often end up hearing the auditions more than I'm actually watching them because I end up doing different things. Um, if I get up to get a cup of coffee and an audition is playing, I find what draws me back in is the voice
Sure.
usually. So if
Yeah.
I whole, that same na 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 na, like it'd be kind of it's hi, my name is this, and instead of I'm Kim, you know what I mean? It's like a different kind of confident. There's something in the voice
Mhm.
that me want to watch more. So I imagine that's what it's like for other casting people as well. But I try to get people really to work on their voice, to lead with their voice, to get their voice to show emotion before they even get to their face,
Yeah.
as it's an instrument that can really go a long way and get you, not just trapped into that same. I mean, there's certain people I just know from their voice. I know who it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Definitely.
yeah,
I
that's
can
a
tell with a customer when I answer the phone whether they're going to be a difficult customer or not just by the first minute of conversation I have with them. And
absolute.
it's amazing how much you can tell from a voice. It's really,
Yeah,
really cool.
it's a gateway for sure. But we do have great classes just for people that want to try.
Yeah.
Just see what this is like and get on mic. Once the problem is once they do it, they're hooked really because it's like you and I started saying it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It gets you. It's like that ride that you take that was so fast that the first thing when
Uh-huh.
I want to do it again.
Yeah.
Can't wait to
Yeah.
do that. That was fun. So I am all a big encourager of fun. Even if people don't want to get on, in the business and go on auditions, just coming to the classes.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful for kids because we really work on that confidence, the eye contact, getting them to just be social.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah.
And reading, I push voiceover more than on camera for kids because it strengthens their reading, they're articulate, they're clear when they talk.
And
You
these are
know,
typical skills that are going by the wayside at this point
oh,
in the world.
very sad. Yep.
I mean, when's the last? I mean, really, I noticed even, I'm the oldest of six. I'm 29, right? So, yeah, it's a big family. But I noticed, I talk to my siblings' friends, eye contact is not simple. Their ability to express themselves is not something that you take for granted. Their ability to hold a conversation and make small talk or speak clearly is not something you take for granted.
Awkward. It's very hard for kids, yeah. So I have a 22-year-old and a 23-year-old, and I can honestly tell you the best thing I ever gave both of them was personality. I mean, these
Yes.
kids, I didn't push them into TV or film or anything because I didn't think that was something I really wanted them to care about. So they're great with their voice. My son is a phenomenal voice actor. Um,
Nice.
but my daughter is a flight attendant, and to this day, she's only 23 and only been working a year. She gets called to be the purser, which is the one that controls first class, and her,
Cool. Because of her communication.
because she gives eye contact, and she absolutely loves that directness with one person at a time and making everybody feel comfortable. And uh, people her age, her peers, they don't want that position. They don't.
Yeah.
They feel uncomfortable. And she's like, oh my God, this is like, I love doing this.
Yeah.
It works in your benefit if you really have those basic skills. And I love reinforcing them, especially with kids. But I
Yeah.
think it's needed as well. So, it's needed for sure. Or maybe it's not. I don't know if maybe, things are changing so much that it's not as needed. But in the world
You know
I'm
why I think it is, by the way? Even though things are changing so much, the reason I think it's needed is because if you take a look at overall, like mental health or emotional state or well being or loneliness, we're
absolutely
not we're not doing better since we've gotten worse at that. Like I think that there's something so deeply ingrained in humans that like we need that eye contact and we need that presence and that communication that that even though it's not comfortable and like it's especially the longer you push it off and the less you practice it the more uncomfortable it is. But I think that the fact that people are less happy or less emotionally satisfied or emotionally well than they were 15, 20 years ago,
Oh
you
yeah,
know
there.
speaks worlds as to whether or not it's whether or not we need it.
So many things are different now. The whole like there. I mean, I could go on and on about this just as a parent, but the whole socializing, play dates, and things where I
Yeah.
didn't have any of that. If I had anxiety as a kid, it was worked out in a sport. Kids,
Do you ever read the book The Anxious Generation?
what is it called?
The Anxious Generation.
No, no, but I
It's
will.
you.
No,
I've recommended it before. It's by a gentleman named Jonathan Haidt, Haidt,
yeah, I'll look.
and
I already know about it though. Just
yeah, it's one of the most important.
you're cutting
It's one
out.
of the most important books I've ever read.
Yeah,
I think it's amazing. Kim,
yeah.
thank you so much for your time.
Time really just
I really, really appreciate it. This is so much fun getting to speak with you a little bit. I hope we can do this again. And I think this is going to be a ton of fun. I really, really appreciate it. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to send you the link when we're done, okay? Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Take care. Bye.